Good evening, everybody. I'm gonna just give Zoom a few minutes to update before we get started. Thank you for joining us. All right. Looks like the numbers have started to settle, so I will begin. Um, It's so great to see so many of you, so many of your names at least. As you can tell, the four of us are on screen and you are all not. And so if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat as we move through this presentation tonight. Um, the counseling department and Lauren Keschner is here tonight. Unfortunately, Miss H is homesick, so she couldn't be here. She sends her apologies and says hello. However, we wanted to update you on the upcoming second round of meetings we'll be conducting with the sophomores this coming month. Thanks to the support of the school board, this past year we hired a new counselor, Tim Nelson, who hopefully some of you have had a chance to meet or maybe will meet. He's been working with grades 5 and 9. And one of the many value adds of his role is that it has allowed us, the counselors on the call, to have more time to work with our upperclassmen. So after the first quarter, the counselors touched base with the sophomores, who we had not seen since they were freshmen. And while these meetings were brief, it allowed us time to check in and make sure everyone was working towards their own individual goals. This coming month, our work with the sophomores is a bit more targeted and focused on aligning any one student's personality and interests with upcoming course selection and looking ahead to post-high school planning. Alyssa is going to speak a bit more about that momentarily. She's also going to preview a nice little activity that we have. We are going to ask the students to complete at home this week with one of their parents. So you can ask them about that either tomorrow night or Thursday night, depending upon when they have English class. And then, as I mentioned, Lauren Keschner is also on the call. She's our new high school psychologist, and she's been phenomenal in so many different ways. And she too will be meeting with the 10th graders to share with them some skills-based work that they can be doing to, cope with and better handle the sort of stressors of high school and at life. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about standardized testing. I know that I've been having a number of meetings with my 10th graders, and the question about what to do next has been coming up. And actually this month, there's been some timely changes to testing policies at some bigger institutions that we'll share with you and sort of talk about how to best prepare. But before that we do that, I'm going to share my screen, and Ellen's going to talk a little bit about the role of the counselor in students' lives. So that's your cue, Ellen.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you. I'm happy to be here tonight and talking to you about the role of the counselor, a role that we're privileged to have when we work with your children. I think that in ninth grade, when we work with students, it's more about getting to know them and getting them settled in high school. And then in 10th grade, kids really start to hit their stride. And we just thought it was a timely moment for us to, remind everyone what we're here for and how we can guide you as you segue into being upperclassmen. Of course, we're always here for academic support. We have begun having our course selection meetings, and we look forward to that annual check-in with students and families. Also, we are here to talk about other academic concerns related to the academic support. Sometimes it's about organization, time management, study skills, working with particular teachers that are our colleagues that we might have tips or pointers on how to work with them. And of course, what's most important that we are really hoping our students leave Bronxville with are the self-advocacy skills. And that's something that we talk about starting in ninth grade, segueing from, middle school and elementary school, where the parent is kind of the interface, becoming the real interface and self-advocate with faculty, you know, with your extracurricular activities, with jobs outside of school, with whatever you're doing, you know, having that confidence to really speak for yourself. Another area we talk about is social emotional support, which is crucial. You know, we want to make sure our students are, you know, doing well. We want them to feel connected to Bronxville in whatever way that works for them as the people that they are. We are happy to talk one-on-one about anything that is going on in students' personal life and give them support. And also, you know, in certain circumstances, it's appropriate to refer as needed. And, you know, we partner with outside support people to be a conduit within the building. So, you know, that's the arena of social emotional support that we hope to help with. And then finally, of course, post-secondary planning, getting these kids ready for what comes next. And that is something we're gonna be embarking on more with your students as they enter this second part of their high school career, through Maya Learning, which is a software program that we have that's for college searches and research and you know, interest inventories, and just a great resource for kids with Bronxville it has Bronxville specific data, and also, of course, career and college exploration. Not just, you know, that we can make sure you're going someplace after Bronxville, but like that you've really done that thorough self-inventory analysis to really think about who you are and, you know, make choices based on that. What's best for you? It's not a one size fits all approach. You know, we want everyone to have the next step in their journey be one that's truly them.
Thanks, Ellen.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. And so I get to talk about sort of what we're doing in our junior workshops, in our sophomore workshops. So we as counselors have the opportunity to push into classrooms each year to discuss really relevant topics in a larger group setting. And this year, right, as sophomores, we discuss the idea of passions and interests in the form of 4 classroom presentations. And they're actually starting this week, which is super exciting. So 2 of these presentations are focused on interest inventories, where students take the inventory and then we sort of guide them through and they answer self-exploration questions related to their interest results. And these sessions really provide students with the space to think about how their passions and interests and really, like, I guess, their current skill sets could lead to future college majors, potential careers, and also course selection. And so through these guided conversations, students really embark on the first step, to Ellen's point, in the college process, which at the 10th grade level looks like self-exploration. And we're also super fortunate to have our school psychologist, Ms. Keschner, and the psychology interns lead 2 more sessions with the sophomore class. And these sessions briefly touch upon social and emotional development through the lens of school-based DBT, which Lauren's going to talk about more in just a moment. And so, to Aaron's point, I'm going to share with you an example of one of the fun activities that we do with our students. Awesome. So this is what we call the career roadmap. And so what we'll do is we'll ask students to interview an adult in their life and ask them how they got to where they are today in their career. And so you can see, right, for some, this path is totally linear. And for others, it's quite honestly, really more often than not, windy and curvy, and it doesn't necessarily follow the roadmap that you maybe once planned for. So our messaging to students and the goal of these exercises is that all of the above paths are okay. And the interviews that students conduct really provide anecdotes to support that. You know, you should be exploring and following your interests, even if it leads to an alternative route. And then the goal is, once students can really start to identify a few areas of interest, they can start aligning them with how they fit into things, again, like coursework, extracurricular activities, etc. So I'll pass it to Ms. Keschner now to talk more about the DBT sessions, but a lot to look forward to.
Perfect. Thanks, Alyssa. Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Keschner. I'm the new high school psychologist. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm here to discuss some social emotional programming that will begin in the next few weeks with our sophomores. So upcoming, right, myself and two of our amazing psychology interns who are completing their training here at Bronxville will be pushing into the 10th grade classes to deliver different dialectical behavior therapy or DBT skills. So DBT is an evidence-based therapeutic orientation that's very much skills-based focused. Right, DBT specifically teaches students how to increase their self-awareness, appropriately regulate their emotions, make positive decisions, and build healthy relationships. So you see on the screen, the first lesson that we will focus on encompasses what's called interpersonal effectiveness, which is directly related to building and maintaining healthy relationships. So skills in this area help students assert themselves and appropriately cope with conflict within various interactions that they may have throughout the day. So one example of an interpersonal effectiveness skill is called Dear Man. So you could see the acronym on your screen. So Dear Man gives students specific steps to help them communicate with others what they want or what they don't want to do. So the Dear Man skill can help students learn to effectively communicate and advocate for what they need to various people, right? To their peers, to their parents, and or their teachers. And it's an important skill to learn and to master at this point. The second lesson that we will be teaching will focus on the area of emotion regulation, which are skills that teach students how to tolerate and regulate all the different emotions that they may feel, right, throughout the day, throughout the week. So one of the emotion regulation skills that we will be covering is called the please skill. So again, you can read the acronym on your screen. As you see, the please skill specifically relates to taking care of your physical health, which we all know is directly correlated to improving your emotional health. So a lot of these are common practices and things that our students may already be doing, but it's really important that they see that connection between the behaviors and their overall moods, and seeing how taking care of their physical health can reduce any emotional vulnerability they may have. So these are just a few examples of what we'll be covering within the lessons. I'm very excited to get right in the classes, to meet all your students, and to really focus on the social emotional well-being and development.
Thanks, Lauren. Also, just kind of given that we're in the throes of course selection, we thought it would be appropriate to talk a little bit about sort of things to consider when talking with your child about what courses to select, and ultimately when meeting with your child's counselor. I will also say that Anne and I ran a little bit of a longer session about course selection earlier this month, which I will sort of re-share tomorrow along with this recording in the event you didn't get to attend that meeting or watch the recording. But for now, Ellen will sort of give us some good things to consider before making our choices.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about course selection as you know, we go into our meetings, as you embark upon making those selections, as you come to meet with us in the counseling office. There's a lot of things to consider. And you know, your course selection is a big part of your school experience, and your school experience is just one part of your life. You know, we always talk about, we want our students to be healthy and well-balanced. You know, it's important to get a good amount of rest, to eat healthily, like some of the skills that Lauren Kirshner was talking about earlier. And a balanced course load is really important. So in the decision-making process, it's important to think of, we have a few bullets below, the rigor of the courses. Yes, you know, we offer some very interesting and challenging and rigorous courses here. And I'm sure there are courses that seem very interesting to many students. However, you not only need to consider the rigor of each course, but also the rigor of all the courses when they're put together. Because, you know, whereas you might easily be able to handle the workload of any single course in a vacuum, once everything's all put together, the net workload is what can become really significant. So that's something that we always talk with our students about considering. also your performance in the current courses. How have you been doing currently? Have you developed a real knack for English? Are you loving reading? Or, maybe that isn't your favorite and you want to focus more on STEM. Depending on how you're doing and what you're liking and what you're interested in, that can be a factor. That should be a factor in your decision-making process. Study skills and habits. That's really important and something that I hope all the students have been, developing and growing in their time here as the course rigor has increased. How do you balance and plan your workload every night? How do you plan short term? How do you plan long term? Thinking about that and the courses that you're taking and what's required is really important. Again, the overall course load, the mention of, not everything's in a vacuum. How is it all coming together? Do you want to take an extra class, or maybe would a free period with study time and a little head start on your homework be beneficial? And then also, as we said, it's, your schoolwork is only a small part of your life. What about your commitments outside of school? Your commitments to your family, if you have a job, if you have extracurricular things, and of course, always health and wellness. So, with these factors, we have the time management worksheet available. It's on our website, I believe. And you can kind of look at like what teachers of certain courses are sharing as what you can expect for the demands in terms of homework and tests for each course, and of course, homework by department, in all those different subject arenas.
Awesome. So as we've mentioned, right, exploration happens both inside and outside of the classroom. So I first want to highlight our clubs. We have a wide range of clubs and activities available to our Bronxville students. Uniquely, these clubs happen to meet during the day during X block, which is a period that's twice a week. And no, regardless of what your kids tell you, this is not just an extended lunch, right? The purpose of X block is really, it's designed to be able for students to meet with a variety of different clubs during lunch to allow for, a focus on different extracurriculars outside of the school day, but also for students to come together who have similar interests and be together and eat lunch together during school as well. So we have a lot of different clubs available. There's a list of our clubs in our office, and it's also posted on the high school website. If your child has not yet joined a club, it's not too late. Always looking for more students to get involved. So if your students have any questions, if you have any questions, contact your student's counselor. And again, the list is posted on the high school website. And so similarly, right, outside of the school, there's always local organizations looking for interns or volunteers. And the counseling department sends out a very in-depth document. We sent it out a few months ago, I believe, which lists different programs offered both during the school year as well as the summer, organized in the document by areas of interest. So if you need another copy of that document, again, please reach out to your student's counselor. We'll be more than happy to pass it along. I do really, to Ellen's point about health and wellness, and to Lauren's point as well, of course, I do really want to emphasize the idea that the summer is really an important time for your child to rest and to relax before their junior year. And also it's an amazing time to dive deeper into a passion project, a subject area, a unique experience, right? An internship. This can be in the form of a college program or a course, a service-related project, a bike ride across the country, right? As long as students are involved and furthering their interests, that's really the goal. So we encourage students to start researching opportunities if they haven't already done so. And just, of course, to always be mindful of deadlines as they approach. And lastly, inside of the classroom, right, there's a lot of course, different classes offered at Bronxville, but there's also a number of ways for students to explore outside of the core curriculum. So if they wish to pursue a subject area in depth that's outside of the core subject areas, there's something called independent studies. So basically they're filling out an independent study proposal that goes deeper into a topic or an area of interest. You can see some examples on the screen of different passion projects and independent studies that students have engaged in the past. And basically the goal is to choose a topic that's not covered in our curriculum. And the student can then create an independent study proposal. And if it's approved, they can go forward with it. So this would allow them really to engage in a study with a faculty member, to take a deep dive into another topic of their choice. And again, if your student has any questions and wants to engage either in a full year independent study or in a semester-based independent study, those applications will come out either at the end of this school year or at the very beginning of the next school year. So something to keep an eye out for.
I'll also just add to that, while they're sort of in the midst and coming to an end this quarter, the mini electives is something new that we've run this year. We've had during X block, teachers teaching subjects or a topic that's a little bit more of a passion of theirs. And small groups of students have been electing to take those courses for a small amount of credit. It's pass fail. And I think that has been very successful, both from the faculty side and from the student side. And I anticipate that sort of program, if you will, growing a little bit in the years to come. So something to sort of keep your eye out on for and speak to your student about as they move through junior and senior year. I guess also moving through junior and senior year would bring you to standardized testing. It's quite timely that we're having this call because earlier this month on a Monday at 6 a.m., Dartmouth came out with a press release that they will be reinstating standardized testing for, as you can see, their class of 2029. I will clarify that and say that's their graduating class of 2029. So the high school graduating class of 2025, so next year's seniors are going to be required to submit test scores to Dartmouth. There was a family in my office that thought they really missed this window, thinking that it would start in 2029, but it starts next year. And then I think it was while we were on break, Yale came out and said that they are going to have this test flexible policy, which you can read about in front of you, which they are too going to be requiring some type of standardized test. What I didn't pull for you is that there's still going to be a number of institutions that are going to be test optional. And each of those institutions for the past few years have proudly declared that upwards of 40–50% of their class has been accepted and matriculated without submitting a test score. But you can see that the tide is slowly changing, and I anticipate it to continue to change for different institutions. So it kind of puts the students in an awkward position that similar to this year's seniors and last year's seniors for that matter, that you're most likely going to want to take a standardized test. And if your child took the PSAT back in October, one of those two test options is now very different than it once was, when we took it and just even a few years ago. So the tests are very different these days. These are pretty much the key differences, which has to do with time. The ACT is a much longer test, which equates to less time per question, whereas the SAT has shortened their testing time and actually somehow still managed to give you more time per question to take the test. Prior to the pandemic, there was talk of the ACT changing their test as well, that those emails and that sort of those rumors have stopped since for the past few years. But I do anticipate at some point this exam to change. But for now, we have this new digital SAT and the sort of, as we all knew, ACT, which is on paper and pencil. The digital SAT is what they're calling adaptive. And so based on how you do on the first section of math and the first section of English, The second section of questions will either become harder or easier theoretically, and that's going to somehow sort of put a ceiling on the score that you can earn on those sections of the SAT or on the digital SAT. And again, I've highlighted this to just draw your attention to some of the bigger differences. You know, the ACT is still the same, paper and pencil. It has this science section, which really requires you to read and interpret graphs. It has nothing to do with actual scientific information. And that is obviously also part of your score. I will also say that I believe it was last year, the Tim Levine, who runs the Bespoke Education, who's been a great partner with us, did a little bit of a deeper dive if you're really into getting into the weeds and reading some of the test questions and seeing how questions on the two exams differ. I will send that recording out along with this one tomorrow if you want to spend a little bit of time looking at that. But you should know that these are different tests, and you should also know that there's really no way for any one student to sit down in our office and for us to tell you which test to take. There's no, you know, grade in a course or collection of grades on a transcript that's going to lead a counselor to be able to make an educated decision about which exam is best for which student. So what we are suggesting, and really anybody would suggest, is start with the diagnostics. Earlier tonight, I actually sent out an email. The junior class is having another fundraiser. They're giving a sample ACT and a sample digital SAT. You really need to take both tests to see what the differences are. You know, even though the ACT is a longer test and has a science section, some students prefer that. Obviously, you know, you might have strong feelings, but your child might prefer to do something else, right? And so that you really want to allow them to get firsthand experience of what those two exams feel like by taking a full-length practice test of those two. Again, this junior class fundraiser is just one opportunity to do that. You can truly go online and just print out practice tests on your own for an ACT, and the College Board has released, I believe it's 4 digital SATs that students can complete at home to get a sense of what that is like. Once you have those 2 data points, you can then make a better, more informed decision about which test to prepare for. Once you determine which test to take, you really just want to plan backwards, right? If you want to try to take a test in early fall, then make sure you're spending the summer preparing. If you're going to wait till March to take the SAT, which I think historically was always like the time that juniors took it, then you probably can wait till late fall, early January to start preparing. The sort of rule of thumb is like 3 months of preparation time to prepare for either of these exams. Some students might need a little bit more time. In theory, some students could use a little bit less time, but 3 months is a good gauge. So if you do look into any courses or any work with a private tutor, you'll often see that the courses are like 3 months prior to the March test date or 3 months prior to the October test date. So I would sort of like use that as a good gauge to determine what is best for for you and your child. I would also say that you want to keep in mind that you are going to want to allow your child multiple opportunities to take these tests. So try to just plan accordingly, that you're not leaving everything until August or September and October of their senior year. Junior year is a good time to do this. Junior year is definitely busy because of this and all of their coursework and, in theory, varsity sports engagements or musical productions. So you want to really strategize about what makes sense for your child based on their individual activities that they have going on, whether it's in school or outside of school. That pretty much brings us to the end here. I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen. I did just want to comment. Okay, Mr. Rizzo wrote something that I just want to speak to. I was trying to type out an answer and it wasn't really, I wasn't able to do it, sort of multitask there. So the district had used Naviance. Naviance and Maya Learning, along with other software, is a little bit college search function and a lot of it of us having a conduit to send materials to colleges. And so in the process of moving to Maya Learning, I realized that the district had been using Naviance since about 2002, maybe. And what happened during that time is that Naviance kind of became like the AOL email of the world, and other software that is out there became sort of the Gmail of the world. And so Naviance was really no longer meeting the needs of our students and the department. And so we spent a few months as counselors looking into the different software options that are out there, and we decided on Maya Learning. I believe this is our third year using this software. Everybody has different feelings about what's good, what's bad. To Mr. Rizzo or anybody else out there that's been having any issues, I'm happy to speak to you about it. I think it is a little bit better. And that's the software we're using. The 10th graders will have access to Maya Learning next week. When we go into their classes and talk to them about our sort of second phase of lessons. And at that time, if you're not already on Maya Learning from an older child, parents will have access to it as well. And so when that sort of activation happens next week, late next week, I will make sure that you as parents are aware that you now have access to Maya Learning. There's another question about acceptance rates. Yeah, so, regarding standardized tests, this could be a whole sort of conversation in itself. The acceptance rates at schools for kids that don't submit the test scores is going to be hard to nail down because it's going to be different everywhere. I would also go out on a limb to say that colleges are not releasing that information. As you all might know and have heard, if you read the New York Times or any other publications that talk about college admissions, it's a holistic process where it's beyond the transcript and their grades and their test scores, and they're really looking for students and for people that are going to join their community and be active members. So I don't know that they would have data on who's not getting in versus who's getting in based on submitting scores. We can just tell you that, firsthand, students are definitely getting into college without submitting test scores, and students are definitely not getting into colleges with submitting test scores. It's also most definitely increasing the number of applications. 100% is true, which is driving down acceptance rates. It's also inflating the average accepted ACT score or SAT score at every college that reports that information. That is absolutely true as well. So there, has become another sort of layer of problems with the test optional policies that have gone on in the past few years. Which I think speaks to Dartmouth's decision to reinstate them, along with other institutions that are going to follow suit. Again, happy to have more conversations about this with anybody that has any questions, and so too are the other counselors if anybody has any questions. Yeah, so the mini electives are running either on Tuesday or Friday during X block. I guess it would really depend on any one given club schedule as to whether or not you could make it to a club meeting and to the mini elective course. But I mean, I know sort of generally speaking, yes, students are doing both. It just might happen to be that some clubs are not meeting on the same time when the mini electives are meeting. I suppose that's all from us, although I will keep giving it another minute in case anybody has any more questions. Again, tomorrow and Thursday is our first session with the 10th graders where they will be asked to do that career roadmap. So you can speak to your child about that, Wednesday or Thursday night, depending upon when they have English class. We're following that up next week with, a follow-up lesson where we're asking students to share their sort of experience speaking with one of their parents about their sort of career journey. And so be on the lookout for that. I will share all of these slides and this recording tomorrow. Is there anything else? Yes, I do believe there is an analysis given out by Bespoke, who is kind of co-sponsoring the mock SAT and ACT. They're going to give you a score analysis report, which sort of speaks to questions you got right and I guess topics in which you got wrong. I am sure if you wanted a more thorough analysis of the results, you could definitely speak to Bespoke. They would do that work. They would engage in that type of work. I can speak for all the counselors. We'd be happy to look over that with you as well, to give you our sort of impression of what is best suited for any one student. So you will get an analysis following that test. Prep courses, I would just say that whatever makes sense for you and your family is going to be adequate. There's a lot of online options. There's obviously plenty of in-person options. I would try to make sure that whatever preparation is done for any student, the most important work happens between the meetings with the tutor or the class, right? The class or the tutor are not the sort of magic elixir, if you will. It's the work that happens between those sessions where they do the preparation, where the students are working on their own, reviewing the questions that they need practice on, or retaking tests. And so it's the work that happens between the meetings that is really the valuable piece to SAT or ACT preparation. So I would just keep that in mind if you engage in any type of private sort of support for that. Obviously, Bespoke does a great job. So too do a number of other organizations, both in town and obviously online. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it. Again, I will send out all the recordings and slides that I mentioned along the way tomorrow. As the numbers are starting to fall off, I think we're going to sign off and have a good night.